Next, I want to update you on the bushfires in Australia. This graphic gives you an idea of the scale of the issue. Fires all across New South Wales and in parts of Queensland too. Now, on Tuesday, the threat level was set at catastrophic. That's the highest level that exists in Australia. And the fire service says the conditions match the warning.
We saw the peak winds up to and above 80 kilometres an hour. We saw the temperatures up into the high 30s. And we saw the humidities down as low as 5% across so much of the geographic area of New South Wales affected.
3 people died across the weekend. There have been no fatalities since, but this has been the largest firefighting operation in Australia's history. And these pictures give us an idea of the kind of conditions these firefighters are facing. So this is in New South Wales, where as we're told 1,500 firefighters have been deployed, dealing with upward of 300 separate fires. And you can see they're not just tackling this from the ground, but from the air as well. These pictures as well give you an idea of the technique that's being used. This is a fire retardant which is being dropped on areas, and once it's been dropped, the flames struggle to spread. It's a phosphate that's mixed with water, and if you're thinking, well, why is it that colour? Well, it's simply a dye which then guides the pilots to know which areas have been treated and which areas still need to be treated. As for Sydney itself, which we've talked about a lot this week, you can see the air quality and the air visibility. Some people are being told to stay inside if they have conditions like asthma because the air quality has been so poor. Bear in mind, some residents have also chosen to leave certain areas if the bushfires were particularly close. Unfortunately, the conditions and the fires are not going to go anywhere in the short term. Here's the same spokesperson for the fire service.
We simply aren't going to get the upper hand on all of these fires. So we've got a long way to go yet before we can say we're comfortable with the state of the fires and their containment and the prognosis, particularly in northern New South Wales, given the enormous size of the fires that are burning still.
Well, we know that 1 million hectares of land have been burnt out in this fire season already. That's 3 times as many as in the previous fire season in Australia. And bear in mind that the summer is yet to start. Because of that, because of the conditions, because of the size of the fires, as you'd expect, climate scientists are paying close attention. Here's the World Meteorological Association.
There has been an associated increase in the length of the fire weather season, and climate change, including increasing temperatures, is contributing to these changes.
Now, you may not be surprised to know that this has become politicised very quickly. On yesterday's programme, we highlighted the Deputy Prime Minister's comments that anyone drawing connections between these fires and climate change is raving inner city lunatics. That's been criticised in a number of quarters, not least from Green politicians in Australia. One of them says the main parties are no better than arsonists because of their policies on climate change. And this to and fro has brought out a comment from the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, who says there have been a lot of provocative comments from all sides, and I find it very unhelpful. Well, perhaps the one thing that everyone in Australia agrees on is the bravery and commitment being shown by the fire service. Here's one resident in northern New South Wales.
And all these fireys and everybody just working so hard. Can't thank, the word thank you is not enough. I don't know what the word is that we all want to say, but it's just not enough.
One nice detail here. This note was left by the fire service for one resident saying, "It was our pleasure to save your house. Sorry we couldn't save your shed. Urunga RFS, the Urunga Fire Service. P.S. We owe you some milk." And you suspect the resident of that house will not mind whatsoever that they helped themselves to the milk. Well, for a further update, I've been speaking to ABC News' Lara Hyams, who's in a suburb of Sydney.
Well, for New South Wales, it's actually towards the north of the state and also along the mid-north coast. That's where some of those conditions that we have been seeing have been exceptionally dry for this time of year. Yesterday, there were threats that that was actually going to take a hold of Sydney itself. The area where I am is located on the upper north shore of Sydney in a suburb called Turramurra. There is bushland about 50 metres away, and that fire actually got to an emergency level yesterday. Some thick, dense dense bushland is around those properties, and that ignited very quickly yesterday afternoon at about 4 o'clock. We're still seeing a multitude of fires around the state, but the severity of them isn't as bad as what we saw yesterday. What you can see behind me is some of the homes in the suburb of Turramurra which are doused in almost this pink retardant all along the roofs and also the facades of the homes. And that was because yesterday aerial water bombers flew down when that bushfire ignited just up from me and took hold of that bushland area. And those water bombers responded exceptionally quickly to douse a lot of those areas with that flame retardant. That actually took out a lot of the fire, reduced the intensity.
And I can see behind you the colour of the roof. I can also see the cars in the drives and a couple of people walking by. Does that mean most people have stayed put rather than leave the neighbourhood?
Well, around this area, there were fire officers that were door-knocking neighbours yesterday, telling them to perhaps pack their possessions that they wanted to and get ready to leave. But it was courtesy of those water bombers that enabled that fire to reduce from emergency warning very quickly. So some of the residents that I've spoken to this morning say that even though they were prepared to leave, they didn't necessarily need to because it was the quick response to that. At times, there have been concerns that fire crews may be stretched ahead for the summer, but we have been warned about this. Those conditions don't seem to look any positive for the month ahead.